to be a half-hour session instead of just 15 minutes. And so this will be a great opportunity for Robin to talk more about his background in Africa.
Now, Robin, I hope you won't mind, but I'd like to acknowledge Charles. Charles has put in so much work. He drives this project on so much. So thank you, Charles, on behalf of everybody involved. How much effort you put into this. You wouldn't believe the amount of effort that goes into it and the planning. So, Charles, big thumbs up to you. Thank you very, very much for putting all this on.
So, Gary, do you think we can get Martin on screen?
Yeah, Martin, all he has to do is click his camera and that should do the job. Let's see if he can get on screen. Good evening, Robin. Good evening, Martin.
Good evening, Charles. Good evening, Gary.
Hi there, Robin. Great to see you. Hello, Martin.
Hello. Good evening. Good evening.
You've got your. I see you've got your head is in front of your Population Matters.
Yes, there it is. I'm going to move it around. I
reorganise a small amount. Okay.
It's very high tech, actually.
So great to see you both. So you've got, just so everyone knows, you've got the benefit of a half-hour session now rather than just 15 minutes. Martin, I'm really pleased to have you back here on our platform. So Martin, you were an amazingly compassionate person when I met you a few years ago when you were 18 years old, right? So it's really great to have you here today, back on this platform, talking about this incredibly important subject. I mean, when I first saw it, I really loved the quote from Sir David Attenborough, who we all know. And his quote is it's very simple. All our environmental problems become easier to solve with fewer people and harder and ultimately impossible to solve with ever more people. So I think this is a great introduction to you both. Robin, I'm really pleased that you can join us. We had a question earlier, and when this question came up, I thought, rather than me try and improvise this one, let's ask Robin to answer this question. Yeah, so are you ready, Robin?
Yes, I'm ready.
So, Martin, you decide what order to take it in, but the question is how do we communicate climate change in parts of the world such as Africa and Middle East, where the environment factor is not much of an incentive for people to change? Could we, for example, change this incentive? So, I mean, if you're not an expert on the Middle East, then leave that. But let's focus on Africa. So how do we communicate climate change in Africa, where the environment factor is not so much of an incentive? So, Robin, do you want to take that?
Okay, that's quite a difficult thing to answer because most people in Africa are up in it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but we try and ask really hard questions here.
Okay.
Baptism of fire.
The people I work with in Africa are more concerned about poverty. They live often in dire poverty, and the consequences of climate change for them are the rivers drying up, farming weather changing, and a lot of them really they haven't thought too much about how they can change climate change. They're dealing with the consequences of climate change. So I think it's been very interesting to listen to the conversation tonight because a lot has been about consumption. Very little of it has been about population. And the two and two, climate change is really a combination of population times consumption.
But just to get back to your people in Africa, I mean, this is such a fundamental answer you've given. What you're saying is that the subject of climate change and poverty and rivers drying up and food not being grown, all these things you're saying is an interrelated problem, which is what Professor Ilan Kelman was saying just over half an hour ago. So that the things are all integrated as one, and hence maybe it's a mistake in Africa or many places to be saying that climate should be singled out. This is an integrated problem of all these different factors which you just articulated.
Yes, I think climate change, the discussion is people living in the Western world who have the standard of living where they can perhaps cut their consumption. For most people in Africa, they would love to increase their consumption because they're so poor.
Great.
We mustn't deny them that.
That's what we need to be talking about, Martin, isn't it? It's how people can get out of poverty and have a better life and better life for everybody. I mean, one of the things with solar panels is that solar panels maybe enables people to have power who would not previously have had power. In places like Africa have more sun. And of course, in what I'm doing with my trees, with the trees, every time people plant 100 trees, that creates a day of paid work for families who would otherwise be in extreme poverty. So planting trees in the right place is creating paid work, it's creating communities and establishing society there. But Martin, that's enough from me. So would you like to introduce yourself and then lead off with your conversation?
Right. Thank you very much, Charles. And we'll perhaps come back to some of those points about. Let's see if I can just. There we are. Come back to talk about those points because people in Africa, and I'm sure Robbie will say something about this, they are not the ones who have caused climate change, but they are the ones that are suffering. And they are very poor, and they do need, as part of justice, to be able to sort of come out of that poverty, which means they are going to be consuming more, quite rightly. So we've got to work around how we can do that without creating more greenhouse gases. Well, thank you very much, Charles. Let me go on then and say Robin and I thought we had 15 minutes, so we had anything timed absolutely meticulously, so we have a bit of freedom here. Robin, I've asked to come along here because you said last month that we want to talk about what's actually happening, what can we do on the ground, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, I'm Martin Earl, I'm the coordinator of the London group of Population Matters, as you can see my banner, which I don't have up there all the time, but it's there for this session. Population Matters is a campaigning charity that promotes ethical policies in order to slow and reverse human population growth, to mitigate climate change, which is what we're talking about here, but also must forget, really as important, maybe more, biodiversity loss and also resource depletion. Now, last month, I interviewed Katrina Dixon, Kat, who is a campaigner of Population Matters, about the policies that Population Matters promotes, which is family planning, empowerment of women, education for girls, and reducing poverty. So this is why today I'm very pleased that Robin Witt, who, as you said, is the founder of Chase Africa, has agreed to be interviewed so that we can discuss the way some of these policies are being implemented on the ground in Africa, and particularly Kenya. I think Gary might have slipped away because we can't see him there.
I'm absolutely here and paying attention, but you have the stage.
No, Gary, the reason for calling you back was had a clip we wanted to show because it really does show how an individual person has been affected by.
Well, let's watch it. So there's a tiny.
I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it now. I'm asking you: are you able to show the clips? I can't show it with the right volume.
Yes,
and if you are,
absolutely. Where would I get it? Is it a link somewhere?
Yeah, you should have had it already.
It's okay.
I don't know if I can send you the link whilst we're doing this. Well, in that case, what I'd like to do.
Where is the link exactly?
It is on group? Charles's email.
Okay.
And
okay. Well, look, you two carry on, and in the next couple of minutes we'll put that up. Yeah. How's that sound?
But what I would like to do, would you mind letting me share your my screen?
Not at all. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. I want to show this is the website. Can everyone see this for Chase Africa?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be talking about that, asking Robin to explain. One of the slogans at the top here is giving women the chance to choose. And we've got family planning as one of the things they do, primary health care and sustainable development. Then I want to go down here. Can you see this picture of Kidogo? And we're going to be talking about her a bit later on. But I mention it now because I think this is what I want people to take away, or what we hope to take people away. She was married at 12 or 13 to an older man of around 40 who had died last year. She's now a single mother of 9 children, 2 of whom have unfortunately died. And it's only now, with the arrival of family planning services to a village, that her first name is Josephine, has access to contraception for the first time. And this is a quote, and no harm in saying it twice. I'm championing family planning. These are her words that would be on the clip. To the rest of the women in the village, the moment you stop having children, you have the strength to go and do so many other activities rather than just having being pregnant and breastfeeding. And to date, Chase Africa has funded the provision over 260,000 family planning services to women in Kenya and Uganda. So, Robin, I want to bring you in here. Sorry for going on there. If I stop sharing.
No way. That was lovely. And it's those human stories that really make the difference. And showing
Exactly.
her, just say a name, but then you made her real by showing us the picture. So thank you very, very much. It really, you bring things to life there. And I'm going to try and get that video from Charles.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, Robin, I'm going to bring you in here. Would you like to explain why Chase Africa, well, Chase, by the way, stands for Community Health Sustainable Development, doesn't it? Why you concentrate on those three things?
Yeah, well, I'm glad we've had a lot of discussion about trees, because I've been planting trees since I was a teenager. I love planting trees. And I married into a family from Kenya, and I've been going there most years since 1976. And I was very sad to see the forest disappearing around where my wife's family lived. And so just in trying to put it back, I set up a charity called the Rift Valley Tree Trust to plant trees. And what I was, over many cups of hot, smoky, milky tea, I kept having this discussion with women about why did they have 7, 8, 9, 10 children when I had 2, which I thought was gave me enough problems and issues at times. Why did they have this many? And I was staggered to learn that most of them never really wanted to have so many children. They had this many children because they had no access to family planning. And it was very clear that there was such a link between their poverty, the disappearance of the forest, and the lack of family planning. So in 2012, we changed the focus of the charity. We changed the name to Chase Africa, and we got involved with meeting the unmet need of family planning in rural areas. We still plant trees, but I think what we do now is with the family planning is making much more of a change.
Oh, thank you for that. So basically, you start off in trees, and I'm sure Charles would like to hear that. I remember you saying at a previous meeting, this might be worth sort of letting people know, when you first went there, you were amazed by the scenery, weren't you? By the wildlife, by the fact there were forests there, there were wild animals. And when you went back later, they'd all gone. The forests had gone. And is that right? Is that one of the reasons why you were?
Yes, I mean, I think all over the world we're losing biodiversity. We know that, but I just think, I mean, it's a staggering fact. In 1920, there were 2 billion human beings. In 2020, 100 years later, there are nearly 8 billion of us. And to grow that amount of food for that many people, you have to plow up nature, basically. And we've lost this massive amount of diversity. And in Africa, again, there are about 70 million women in the world have no access to family planning. It's the main driver of this massive population growth when women don't have the chance to choose how many kids they want to have.
Robin, I want to come back and say, wasn't it your experience of in Kenya, having initially gone there when you were much younger, seeing the wildlife there, and going back later on and discovering that a lot of it had gone?
Yeah, I mean, where there were once elephant and now maize.
Exactly. So with an elephant and now it's maize, and you wanted to do something, which is why you were planting the trees to try and restore it to some extent.
Yes, we were planting trees, but it's very hard actually to find land outside a national park now where you can plant trees in any serious amount, because the plot size, the average size farm in Kenya now is only 2.6 acres. When you've got a farm only that small, you haven't got much room to plant trees.
Well, let's move on then to what you actually do. What's some of the projects that you support?
Well, we now support 9 projects in rural areas, 7 in Kenya, 2 in Uganda. And we've chosen rural areas specifically because that's where women have the hardest, they don't have the opportunity often to go to a family planning. There's not a clinic. It's too far to walk if there is a clinic. And when they get to the clinic, if there is one, they're often charged. So we run these mobile clinics, which go out to the communities. We do a lot of primary health care, but we just give women the chance to choose when they want their next kid. And it's not as simple as that. It takes a lot of work in these rural areas. There are lots of myths and misconceptions about family planning. So we have to do a lot of talking with the community health workers, and we have to really change the mindset of men. Men are the ones, they want 10 kids. They don't have to give birth to them. It's the poor women who want to choose how many kids they want to have. So the men are key to changing the understanding, really, of the benefits of family planning. And I think, like all of us, we want to have our kids educated. But in Africa, secondary education is not free. In Kenya, it's about £300 for a child to get educated per year. If you're earning £2 a year, you can see that you're not going to send many kids to secondary school. So when a woman has that chance to choose how many kids she wants, she can send her kids much more likely to school. And we all know that sending kids to school is a game changer for their future.
Okay, well, thank you, Robin. For those of you, some of the people who I told about this talk may have just come in now because we've had 15 minutes early, which I'm very pleased to have. This is for people who are just joining us because of ice in Oregon, apparently, but that's another story. So just to recap, Robin Witt is here. He's the founder of Chase Africa, and he's obviously passionate about what he's doing to try and help bring people out of poverty. And a large part of that is to make sure that women have access to family planning and to healthcare. And it's a part of that sort of relationship with sustainability, isn't it, Robin? That's the part there. So I want to say, I want to go on then to say that I can see, and I think probably all of us listening, what an excellent job that you're doing to improve people's lives. But it also, this has the result of helping to reduce poverty by slowing population growth in Kenya, yes? Where it can make a much difference to preserve the wildlife and the local biodiversity, which is, apart from bringing people out of poverty, it has that effect as well. It also contributes to preserving, to helping reduce world population growth. But obviously, Chase itself, you said you've got 9 projects there. It's a very big problem. What else do you think can be done?
Well, I think what else can be done is, we're trying to make an example. Population is a very difficult subject to talk about. But we're trying to make the case that it shouldn't be a difficult subject to talk about. That all we're trying to do is we're giving every woman the chance to choose how many kids she wants to have. I'm sure most of you listening have heard of Project Drawdown. We're talking about the best ways to reduce CO2 by 2050. On that list, I'll get the figures right. The number 6 on that list was getting girls to go to secondary school. Number 7 on the list was meeting the unmet need of family planning. If you put those 2 things together, they become number 1. That would be the most effective way of reducing CO2 emissions by 2050. So I think we should all in the West be much more aware that some of the aid money we send should be spent on meeting this unmet need for family planning. It's the biggest difference we can make. For a couple of cups of coffee a year, you can give a woman in Africa the chance to choose when she wants to have a next kid. It's a game changer, and it's so cheap.
Okay, well, Robin, I want to ask you, you say it's difficult to talk about population. Is it difficult to talk about population or family planning in Africa in the projects you've been involved in? Is it difficult?
In the beginning, it sometimes is, but over time, the language changes, especially when one woman sees, a friend of hers seeing all the benefits of family planning, and women are the best people, to talk about it to their friends. So it has been difficult, but things are changing. It's amazing. Nearly everyone in Africa has a smartphone now of some sort or another, and they can learn about these things. So that's changing. And luckily, men's attitude is slowly changing. The young men are realizing that they, again, like the women, they want to send their children to school. So things are getting better. But, it's a staggering fact that the world population grows by 1 million every 5 days.
Let me say, Robin, let me come in there. I mean, and a lot of that's going to be in Africa, isn't it? That's
a great deal of that's in Africa. Yeah.
Okay, I want to, Gary, you still there, hiding behind your picture again? Were you able to get the link or not? Because I can go on. Hello, Gary, can you hear me?
You're muted.
I'm shocked at that statistic, Robin. How many are added to the population?
Every 5 days, 1 million.
Wow.
And another staggering fact, Gary, is that during the lifetime of those 1 million people, there'll be 10 million extra livestock. And we all know that to feed livestock, we've got to have a lot of land to feed the livestock.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do, Gary, you haven't got the clip, have you? Which time?
Well, I've asked Charles if he could give it to me.
No, don't worry that, because we want to use the time really to discuss. And I think people can go to the website, the Chase Africa website. We'll put up on the stuff that goes out afterwards, and can probably see a link there. But what I want to actually talk about what Kidogo was going to say, what Josephine Kidogo was going to say, and then ask Robin to respond to that. Because, as I said earlier on, she was in her late 20s when she was interviewed for this clip 2 or 3 years ago. And by this time, her late 20s, she'd already given birth to 9 children, 2 who had sadly not survived. Listen, she was 12, she can't quite remember, she was 12 or 13. Now that's the age of my grandchild. Her birthday's in 2 weeks' time. She married a 40-year-old man who has since died. Now, what she said in the clip is she wished that this organisation called CHAT, C-H-A-T, which is one that Robin supports, had come to the village when she got married. And she says she would not have had that number of children because she had gone to family planning, in her words. Mind you, in her words, she talks in Ma language, and she, as you see, she's got that wonderful ornate neck wearing, I don't know what we call it. She is a part of Samburu tribe, which is a part of the Maasai tribes, and Samburu means butterfly, which I think has got this lovely, it's got a butterfly around her neck, almost with those colours. I think it's wonderful. Anyway, where we go here? So what she says was that this organisation CHAT that Robbins supports brought mobile healthcare and access for family planning in her village. That's what she needed. She says family planning is good. She says because there are so many other women like me in the village who are afraid of their husbands, but they could come to family planning without the consent of their husbands for long-term planning. And these are the words we heard earlier on. I am now free. I am very comfortable. When you stop having children, you have energy and can do other activities other than just being pregnant, breastfeeding, being pregnant, breastfeeding. Now, she didn't have any chance for education herself, but I think she's trying to get some now. So education is something she completely lacks. So Robin, I want to bring you in there, because you've obviously seen the clip, and to ask you how typical you think Josephine Kidogo's case is in your experience.
In rural areas, it is very common for girls to be married. 14, 15 is a very common age for them to get married, and they have a large number of children. As you say, quite a lot of them sadly die. And it's so clear that there's a link between large families and poverty. And when you're poor, you just haven't got time to think about climate change. You're just trying to feed. I don't know if any of you saw or heard that extraordinary, sad story of a lady in Kenya last year who had 8 children, and at night she would stir a pot of stones to try and get them to go to sleep because she had no food for them in the morning. And people have, they can't think about climate change. So, as Martin asked me, is this common in these rural areas? It is common for a woman to get married very young, and there has been. In the past, for many of these rural areas, a man's sort of standing in the community is judged on how many children he has. So the women often, to begin with, they're a bit quite frightened, so they ask to have this 3-month Depo-Provera injection in their arm, which can be invisible, as it were. But we're really trying to encourage men to understand the issue of the benefits. There's a horrible story we had last year of a woman getting this 3-year implant, her husband biting it out of her arm when he discovered. So there's a lot of education needs doing in these rural parts, but the situation is changing. It's just making family planning available, which is the game changer.
Okay, well, Robin, these are awful sort of individual stories, aren't they, there? But one of the key things, and we haven't talked about it so much, is education. And of course, when people are having lots of children, they haven't got time for education themselves, and they haven't got time for their children, or can't pay for the children to have education. There's one project I know you do support called Dandelion in Kenya, and that works in rural schools, and it's trying to obviously help the girls, also educate the boys. So I know on their t-shirts, of the boys' t-shirts, it has a slogan, girls for leaders, boys for change. And that seems to me, we're looking at both, girls and boys need to be educated into what's available and what can happen. But going back to this issue about the women being afraid of the men when they're older, is there something there that's changing with that?
Well, yeah, it's a great example of if you get to boys in their teenage years and talk about these issues, hopefully as they grow up, they won't treat their future partners as maybe has been the normal practice. Women are extraordinarily accepting, I think, of these practices which have been going on for hundreds of years. I mean, female genital mutilation is still very widespread in the areas we work. That's another thing which we're working on, alongside the family planning, is all the other health issues women go through and trying to make their lives
Do you
better.
think there's only a few minutes left of this interview? Can we end on a positive? Can we end on some really powerful? Because you've really given me food for thought now, and you actually took me to Africa, and I thought about the scale of the challenge. But can we end on something positive?
Yeah, I think so. But we're a bunch of tree planters originally, and I think as a bunch of tree planters, we've enabled over 270,000 family planning services now. And what I'm trying to do, they're a tiny minute, we're just trying to make this case that the best way we can help women come out of poverty in Africa is to let them have a chance to choose when they want to have the next child. And and as I said earlier, from Project Drawdown, you combine family planning and education, that becomes the best way to reduce CO2. So all of you get up there, don't have a couple of cups of coffee, let a woman have her next kid by choice, and that makes a fantastic difference to someone's life.
Brilliant.
So that again, Robin, how do you have a cup of coffee and do what?
No, just give up buying a couple of coffee at Starbucks or whatever in the air. I just think it's so cheap, it's for £5 you can change a woman's life.
Okay, thanks. And Gary, I want to come back here and add, and I'm sure that Robin would agree. You may not have heard, but the government's appointed a new special envoy for girls' education.
Brilliant.
This is education overseas. Her name's Helen Grant, MP. And the idea is, of course, that if through our overseas aid we're able to support more education for girls, that will help both them, bring them out of poverty, and it will have a knock-on effect on fertility rates. But her job is a hard job, and she's hoping to be at the G7 summit, which is in Cornwall in June, I think.
Wow.
And at the COP26, which we talked about earlier on in Glasgow. Hoping to persuade other countries there to also join in, to have a big push to make sure that girls do have access to education. So I think that's good news.
Well, anything we can do to support her?
Yes, we do. I have a statistic on that. If we want to, you see, kids in the developing world have education, the sort of education we would like our kids to have. We need to listen to this. We need to build 40,000 classrooms a day. 40,000 classrooms a day we've got to build if we want to get kids in the developing world. So education is key. Great that the UK government will recognise that, and I really hope we can bring education up the agenda. But
maybe technology can be an answer. Who knows? One to many rather than one to one.
Yes, it will be. But not just a girl in Kenya who goes to primary school has on average 5.6 children. If she goes to secondary school, it's 2.8. So education is a game changer.
We are both doing an amazing job. Martin, you certainly have changed my view on population matters. Every time I've heard you, I've picked something up. And Robin, thank you. You really given me so much food for thought. I have made lots and lots of notes as you were speaking. So thank you. Charles, are we still running like clockwork? We're 3 minutes to the next transition.
Robin, let's just check that figure. So you said that if in Africa, if a girl goes to primary school, on average she'll have 5.6 children. Mm-hmm. But if she goes on to secondary school, on average she'll only have 2.8 children.
And if she goes on to tertiary, it's 2.2.
Wow. That is an amazing statistic. I mean, we've known for a long time that education of girls makes a real difference. We've known that, but I've not had that evidence of those figures before, Robin. So that's really, really helpful. So thanks to you both for great discussion there. Really, really useful. Great to meet you, Robin.
Thank you.